You're listening to Pathways and Means, a podcast that inspires and shows people how to tap into their creative spirit. We sit down with leaders and makers in every industry to talk about their process, what inspires them, and about how to build incredible things with the power of creativity. The future belongs to the creators, so come join us. This is Pathways and Means.
Hello and welcome everybody to Pathways and Means, another episode coming at you here from the CPM studios. I am Ryan Brinker. I am joined today by Mr. Connor England. Connor, say hello.
Hello. What's up, buddy? Glad we're back doing this again. It's good.
So, Connor and I were talking about a possible topic to discuss. I think that this is something that people in the worlds of art and the world of entrepreneurship and other things might have some experience with. I know that Connor and myself both do. And that's the topic of pride. When you get into really impressive things, when you're kind of a young go-getter and you start racking up some achievements, it can be easy to get bit by the bug and start feeling a little too proud. And it's a real issue that happens especially to creatives and specifically successful creatives. And it's a real pitfall that can happen to people in this creator space. So we wanted to talk about it, maybe learn some lessons about it, have a little bit of a discussion and just see where it goes. So Connor, thank you for joining me today.
Absolutely, man. I'm glad to be here. And I know around the office in our community, this has been a conversation that's sort of been brewing. We've been using the phrase ego death season around here quite a bit.
Hashtag ego death season.
And I think even just making a slight distinction between, those words can potentially be helpful. Pride, I think in the public conversation is something that, depending on which camp you're looking at, which definition you're looking at, it can take on a really positive sort of feeling that we all have and can be really healthy and uplifting. It can also take on some really challenging things that, we can speak a little bit on today, I think, especially from our own experience. But it seems to be this thing that feels different than ego. Almost every place and space we hear that word, there seems to be just this really negative connotation, whether you're looking at like Freud and his ideas on the ego and how it constitutes our vision of ourselves, or, if we call somebody egotistical, usually we're not saying that in a very kind way. It's almost always that person's full of themselves. All they focus on is themselves, and I think even around here, part of the challenge that we're going through is, as you continue to succeed in just about any way, it's really easy to attribute a healthy or unhealthy amount of that success to what is it that I did? How great is it that I am? And as the bar continues to move, your focus on that can get you really aiming at the wrong thing until the weight that you think that you're capable of carrying becomes so much that, like a bodybuilder that's trying to hit that 1 rep max and keep going up and up and up, eventually it gets to a place where you start taking on a sense of self that is no longer healthy. And when the weight comes down, it comes down hard. I've experienced that in my own life in some different ways. I'm sure just about everybody has, but especially in worlds where that word pride is being thrown around a lot, I'm excited to really continue to dig into that concept, both for myself and for us here. But hopefully in a way where we can get all of the positivity out of it that really lies at the heart of it, while not letting it drive us to a place where we end up injuring ourselves unexpectedly.
Yeah, definitely. And you hinted at something that was one of the first things that I wanted to mention, which is I think that when these definitions sort of overlap, that can be kind of difficult to understand. So I think there's a big difference between something like pride and something like confidence. So I think that's a very important distinction. Why don't you take a stab at those two terms and what differentiates them?
Yeah. So I think that confidence is something that is generally speaking, really, really healthy for everybody to have, right? And that's literally, you take the first part of the word, which is confide. You know, if you were to confide in somebody, it's because you trust them enough, you know that they've got a stable foundation, they're reliable, you can put the weight on them and know that, like, realistically it's going to hold. And whether it's the confidence to be able to step on stage and to be able to deliver, if you've got a deadline or something that's coming up, or even just like, you know, you got kids at home and them having confidence in you that you're going to be able to keep the lights on, like, all of that's really, really good stuff. Before we got on here, I was looking up a couple of definitions for pride, and I think the challenging thing, and like, maybe we can throw a couple up on the screen, or, you know, we can, afterwards we can post some of them in the description, but it's like most of the places, whether you're looking at Cambridge, you're looking at Oxford, Merriam-Webster, I'd really encourage you to go look at the definitions for pride, because we know that sometimes these words are ambiguous enough that you'll see like number 1, number 2, number 3. And I feel like every single one that I went through, it was almost always the first one would be like, you know, a healthy sense of self-confidence and belief in yourself. And then the next one would be like arrogance or overinflated sense of self to the place that it can and will hurt you. And I think like in that ambiguity sort of speaks the dichotomy is like, it's good to feel good and to recognize that there are things that we can do as individuals that are really healthy, that are worth chasing after and are worth celebrating. But there seems to be this slip point when it comes to pride that if you start to believe too much in yourself, you become overconfident. Then all of a sudden you start putting yourself in places where you can and will be exposed, because like it just literally doesn't matter how great you are. At some point, if you think that you can do it alone, you will be tested on that. And almost every time, one of two things are going to happen, and neither of them are good. Either one, you're going to be tested and you're going to fail and it's going to hurt and crush you and other people. Or two, you will pass it. And because you thought that it was all up to you, like that continues to reinforce the idea that it's all up to you and that you're capable. And so you take on more and more and more, and you end up becoming this proud person that doesn't know how to ask for help, doesn't know when to say no, doesn't know how to set boundaries, and doesn't know how to be humble enough to say, look, it's not all up to me. Let's see if we can figure out how to do this the right way. And I'd really encourage like everybody to really look into that conversation and try and find a healthy understanding for what pride means to you, because so long as we keep it nebulous, right? I think everybody's sort of got those feelings, and depending on who you're talking to, it's hard for us to access the good parts of it.
And hopefully this will be helpful. This has always been how I conceptualize this. Confidence is I can do it. Pride is only I can do it. So therein lies a very important distinction. I think it's perfectly healthy and even optimal to have confidence in yourself. You should feel that you're competent and that you have the ability to achieve whatever is in front of you. But as soon as you fall into the trap that so many of us do, and so many of us have, and so many of us will, that it's only me, only I can do this. Nobody else is capable in the same way that I'm capable, at the very least, of doing this. That's where pride happens. And that's where we get into these situations like you were saying where, well, for example, just to echo conversations we've even had in the past, some of which were on the program, I don't need a system to take care of this because I can do it. Well, then what happens? Then you become the system. And then not only do you have to deliver the one time that you said you could, you have to deliver from now on. Actually, interesting sort of fun anecdote about this. Shout out to my parents. Love you guys, but I am going to use you in an example.
Tread lightly.
So I remember there was a time when I had gotten some kind of really, really good grade, like a 99% or something in a math class. And I ran home and I showed it to my folks, and I was just so excited. And through conversation after all the congratulations, I remember my mother said something like, well, this is the bar now. I was like, what do you mean? She said, well, Ryan, now we know you're capable of this. So therein lies the pitfall of pride, frankly, because as soon as you achieve some incredible thing and you run all over the place to all of your peers and your coworkers and your friends and you say, look at this thing I'm capable of, well, guess what? Now that's what they expect of you. So if you're going to wear that success as a banner showing that that's what you're capable of, you better be ready to deliver every time. And, I hate to spoil it for you, but you're going to have a bad day. You're going to have an off day. You're going to have an off performance, and it might be on a much bigger stage than you want. And that's the result of pride in a big way.
Oh my goodness. I feel that. And it's amazing how we do that even to ourselves. Like, we get one good grade, we get one award, and now all of a sudden that becomes the bar for us. And in order to maintain a sense of identity that we've built for ourselves, we feel that we have to continue to perform, we have to continue to live up to that bar, or else, the entire idea of who we are crumbles with it. I think that one of the most challenging things that I've experienced with pride, and I don't think I'm alone in this, is that it makes you feel special.
Yeah.
And it feels great to feel special. And so you end up in this place where you continue to chase that sense of specialness that you hang your whole hat of identity on. And, before too long, the first time that you're challenged and the first time you don't feel special, it's not like just one event. It's like this idea of it being okay to be average becomes repulsive. And if you don't really hang out on like number one or your first place or whatever, it's not like a small event. It's something that crushes you. It punches you in the stomach, and like you end up completely retreating because I don't know who I am anymore if not this. It feels great to feel special until you have to be special in order to just feel like you can breathe.
Yeah. Well, we talked about the example that we've used before is people who graduate from Navy SEAL training. That's very special. That's extremely exciting. And many of them feel that way. And they think, well, I'm the coolest guy ever. I just graduated Navy SEAL training. Then they show up to a SEAL platoon, talking that talk and walking all tall. And they're like, hey, guys, guess what? I graduated from Navy SEAL training. They're like, yeah, we all did. And a lot of us have actually been on tour, and you haven't. So, and all of a sudden you just get so deflated. But you wouldn't be in a situation like that if you hadn't inflated yourself. So, I'll sort of tell one anecdote about this where this sort of thing happened. In high school, I fell kind of backwards into sort of everything. I tried out for I have friends of mine from high school who are going to hear this for the first time, but okay. I tried out for a top acting group class because there was a girl I liked in it, and I wanted her to, notice me. It didn't even work, actually. But got into the class, and then through that, I got into the top choir also, just sort of because. And so at some point, I thought what you would think, which is, wow, I'm really, really good at performing arts. It seems like that, just naturally gifted. Aren't I special? Then when I went off to college, there was a choir audition, and I thought of it as a formality. I was like, oh, great, I get to be in choir. I made plans and stuff. I looked up the calendar of their events, and I was like, here are all the things that I get to invite people to. I didn't even get the second audition. I was asked not to come back. Ouch. No, I wasn't asked not to come back. They just never called. So, and it's funny what happens when you're in that situation where you think you're that special. You're like, no, there must be some mistake. I checked my emails and stuff. I was like, I hope it's not in the spam folder. It wasn't in the spam folder. They just didn't reach out. So, but I didn't have to feel hurt that way. I think that's sort of the lesson that I took from it, is that nobody hurt me in that case. I did, because I was a shoo-in, because I was special, because how could they say no to me? Nobody does that. Don't you know who I am kind of situation? But that feeling, that special feeling you were talking about, where I get to live in this look how great I am thing for a little bit, that's me climbing up and up and up, and then the fall is my own fault. Nobody did anything personal. They just didn't put me in the choir. They didn't put a lot of people in the choir. But to me, it hurt me very badly. And that was the result of my own inflated thought of my beliefs. So,
I kind of like how that experience was, trying to connect with somebody. Maybe it was a girl, maybe it was, I think we've all gone into something because we were looking to build a friendship or a relationship or whatever, but I don't think for a second that a lot of people that end up falling into the trappings that pride can have, or doing it from a place of arrogance, I think a lot of times it starts because you want to feel special, because maybe it's the case that you didn't. Maybe it's the case that you're so desperately hungry to feel special, from someone or something, that like you just pour your all into it so that you can be good enough to be considered, so that you can have an identity to hang your hat on that you feel proud about, because maybe you don't with wherever it is that's going. I know that probably one of my biggest on-ramps for pride came as a direct result of a fallout I had with my fraternity in college. I was the president of Delta Chi out at Washburn, and we had struggling recruitment numbers. And there was this sense of specialness that comes with like leading this group, especially, I was, just started as a sophomore, which usually didn't happen. And all of a sudden it was off to the races, and we had to try and make the whole thing special enough for us to hit numbers so that it could continue. And when that didn't happen, it's like the whole charter was pulled out. This community of guys disbanded, and it was a very painful thing. And it wasn't that I went back to average, it's that I was a failure. And I felt deeply unspecial. And so I just sort of sat in this space of pain, and I felt very lost. And then out of nowhere, the Washburn Business School sort of gave me an opportunity to try stuff out again. And it was a life raft that I very, very much needed. But there were a couple of competitions that, just by virtue of some of the studies that I had done beforehand, really seemed to snap in. And I tried out for my first one, and I ended up taking first, and it came with a really big cash prize. And now all of a sudden, like, I had all of these eyes on me, and I was like, okay, I'm back in the driver's seat. I've got a group of people around me. I care about this thing, and I care about the people. Let's see if I can do it. And one competition ended up turning into two, ended up turning into three. And it's like, I just had a gift for it. And so I continued to knock these things out. And it's weird because at one moment it was like, I just wanted to get my foundation back underneath me. I was just looking for a purpose and a mission. And before too long, it was like this whole pony show about, who's winning and who's racking up the most money. And it's like, that became the focus. And that came back to haunt me deeply when now all of a sudden it wasn't a game anymore. It was like, we have to take these different concepts that we were sort of masquerading, that we were playing. It was all acting at that point. And then when I had to be tested to see if I was doing those things for the right reasons, man, it ended up falling completely on its head. At the heart of it was really just, I was so hungry for a sense of community and to be good at something that I went into it for that reason, and coming out of it was not necessarily moving for that way. And I feel like there's probably a lot of people that maybe they get to this place. We see celebrities all over the place that end up getting really good at what they do, and they're making $50 a movie, and et cetera, et cetera. And you go back to the documentary and it's like, oh no, they really had a mission. They really had a focus. What happened? And I think part of this ego death season that we're going through right now is just like making sure that we're doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah. I think we've kind of set the stage at this point in terms of what pride is and what it feels like. And I'm sure that, the audience doesn't have to admit it, but everybody knows what that feels like and has had that experience. Let's talk a little bit about the antidote. Let's say that you're listening to this and, you feel the sting of pride within yourself. What's the way back from that in your view?
To that conversation on confidence versus pride, like, it's good to have confidence and to know that you can do it. I think when pride steps into the space where you think that only you can do it, for whatever reason, you really start to get into challenging territory. And so it's sort of recalibrating why it is that you're doing things, and then pushing back into that and watching as your entire approach changes. So I'll go ahead and continue on an example. It was like, after I had started in business and I had gotten all of these competitions, like, I thought that I was great and only I could do it. And meaningful community push on that 20 under 40 and go Topeka things and all of that. Like I felt like I was really, really big on that. And, I had stepped into a relationship that was a very different dynamic for me. We were co-parenting 4 children, and a job that I was previously at, a company that we were building, I had transitioned out of. And essentially I had to find a way to figure out how to play this business game as well as I thought that I had known it. And, my partner at the time, all the gratitude in the world, she held space for 3 to 6 months for me to really try to do that. And it just wasn't working. And you just don't have as much runway when you've got a family and you've got these different pressures. And so I had to really completely abandon how good it was that I thought I was, because it was all up to me. And if I didn't figure it out, then we were just sort of in this tough situation. And as I came out of that and I moved into this new spot, I began working with other community partners who really excelled in different ways, who were willing to come beside and play as a team. And when I was able to just play a part of it, when I was able to not have to figure everything out on my own, when I didn't have to win or prove something to someone, myself included, it was it opened up this space for me to just be good, for me to just, do this thing because I wanted to help the community, because I believed in some of the products or services that we were doing. It was you don't have to be special. You can just do these things. I think it really, really, really helped to have the space to continue to grow and explore without all of the pressure that comes with pride, because it's a ton of pressure to be excellent all the time. I don't think Elon Musk can only be exceptional and special for so long. If it's only up to him to get us to Mars or to figure out, the electric vehicle situation, then we're probably in a really tough spot, because that's a lot of weight for any one person to carry. I would just encourage anybody who is maybe feeling like it's all up to them to just pause for a second and really evaluate, what sort of community do you have in place? Have you created a system that it absolutely is completely up to you? Because if it is, and then sometimes the world steps in and you maybe don't have the runway that you thought that you did, or maybe there are challenges that you just can't predict for, and everything falls apart, then maybe the entire situation is designed by pride, and it could be good to figure out, what would it look like if it weren't all up to me? What if I could just do this and things would continue even if I step away from it for a little bit?
Yeah. I know that, I'll be the first one to admit it. I still have work to do in this area. But I know the first time that I made a step in the right direction in terms of stepping away from my prideful self. And I know how it happened too. And that, to me, I think potentially the most surefire way to get away from pride is to fail, fail big, is to fail publicly, and is to fail undeniably. And that last word is important. I'll explain what I mean. So this was even after the choir thing, because you could chalk that up to, well, maybe they didn't have positions open where I was, or they just didn't need somebody like that. So you could sort of deny that and be like, well, it's not me, I'm still special, but it just wasn't the right fit. Okay. So I went to the William Allen White School of Journalism and Mass Communication. Shout out to the University of Kansas. And they have a really terrific television news production side of journalism school. Now, when I went there originally, I wanted to be an anchor for a national news thing. That was my dream job. So I get into the television production side. I find the TV news there. I go and I speak with the administrators of the program. Now, normally you come on as a producer, and then you become a reporter, and then at some point you become anchor if you're really lucky and if that's what you want to do. Not Ryan, not me. I wanted to step into that anchor chair first day because I just knew my natural on-air abilities and my instinct for it. I've been dreaming of it my whole life. I know that I can achieve. So I talked that talk. I talked my way in there, and miraculously, I was given the chair. I was given the opportunity to be a producer, at one point a lead producer, and an anchor. And this was it. This was the time I was going to show everybody how great I was going to do. I had to fill 10 minutes. Each of the news broadcasts were 10 minutes at 4:30 on the local cable access channel that was free to everybody. I failed so hard. So hard. I was still in 101 journalism classes. I didn't know what I was doing. They gave me an assignment to go report on something, and I showed up and didn't know who to talk to. I had no clue what I was doing. But I had talked, I had, ruffled my feathers up, and I had said, I can do this. And I failed publicly and undeniably. There was no question of it in my mind whatsoever. That didn't work, Ryan, and that didn't work because of you. I knew it. I was the one in the chair. I was the one who had the pride to say, I deserve the chair, I can do it. And I had no reason to believe I could. I had no experience. But I got in there, and that was the result. And I think that as painful an experience as that was, and I did ultimately get a little bit better at it with practice, but only because after having a conversation with the administrators of the program, they mentioned to me that I wasn't treating it like the news. I was treating it like the Ryan Show. They were correct. And again, painful to fail in public, painful to fail undeniably, painful to take responsibility for that failure. I'm not minimizing those things at all. That was brutally difficult for me to experience, but that told me, okay, if you want this and you're the problem, then you need to fix it. And so I started putting in the work. I dug down and found some humility and became a student and learned, and ultimately I got a little bit better at it. But that wouldn't have happened if I could have retreated into my own shell about it and said, no, I'm not the problem. I can't be the problem because I'm the best, so it must be something else. That is a fixed mindset. That mindset doesn't allow for growth, because if you're already as good as possible, then why invest any time in trying to get better? And for me, it took a really shocking, big failure on a big risk to learn that lesson, but I'm glad I did.
Holy cow. That's it's a strong story, and I still would love to see an episode of The Ryan Show for what it's worth. I think
mercifully those have been deleted. I hope so. I hope that the staff at KU knew to do that.
Nothing on the internet's ever deleted, Ryan. I love this piece that you share about undeniably, because it feels as if we're in a prideful situation, that if it can be denied, it will.
Yep.
There's a self-protection element to wanting to feel special, wanting to feel above the rest, wanting to feel first, that it's like, for us to shake that idea up, like the entire world would have to crumble around it. And so if there's even a sliver of hope that I'm still special, that I'm still perfect, we look everywhere except inside ourselves, So, man, if it takes just absolute undeniable failure so that you have to look into yourself and say, okay, maybe I'm not as special as I thought, that's like a really, really difficult situation. And sometimes rock bottom is a great place to build a foundation upon, because then by not having to be special and perfect, you can start to say, okay, how do I just get better? How do I really earn that feeling that I have for myself? Is that feeling even the right feeling to have about myself, or is it just okay to be good? I've been so excited with the conversations that we've been having internally, because it's a lot of that. There's plenty of reasons to feel special. There's plenty of reasons to feel really good about the things that we're doing. And I think, weirdly enough, the biggest growth has just been taking the time to pause and reflect in the areas that, where is it that we can grow? What is it that we're still struggling with? Where is it that we're stuck? Where are we blaming other people? Because we've got it all figured out. It obviously can't be us. And I've just been really grateful for some of those opportunities. And I remember the first time that I heard it, SJ said that failure was your first attempt in learning.
Yeah.
Just taking that sort of mindset to it. I don't know. I love it. And I'm grateful for all of the failures that we have had that have gotten us to this place. I'm sure that they're not going to be the only ones that we have, but if the ego continues to die, then maybe what ends up coming alive on the other side of that could be something really special.
And I want to leave people with this idea, as I'm sure we're running up on time. It's not as fun to be prideful as it is to let yourself be the student. And this is sort of a lesson that I just remembered having told that story again. There's really something to that. Once you've convinced yourself that you're the best you can possibly be at something, then the journey's over. You did it. Now you just have to do that thing over and over again. But if you can find the humility to say, I have things to learn, I have places that I can get to in this chosen field that I love, how exciting is that? You have things to look forward to. You have milestones and you have goals that you can achieve, and you can maybe someday become the best. That's still possible. That potential future is still possible. But if you've convinced yourself that you're as good as you could be, first of all, probably you're not. And second of all, that will take all the wind out of your sails in order to pursue this thing that you love. So I would say, don't let pride rob you of the excitement of what you love to do, because that's what it does. It lies to us and it tells us that we've done all we have to, and life is a much bigger adventure than we think it is. And you're not done learning even if you think you are. And why would you want to be?
I think that was beautifully said, man. I think it's a great place for us to wrap up.
Thank you. I'm really smart, and I'm a writer, and I'm as brilliant broadcasting as you can possibly imagine. Thank you for joining us on The Ryan Show. Okay, jokes. Thank you for joining us on Pathways and Means. It's a fun, evolving discussion, and we'd love to hear your experience with pride, confidence, ego, any of these things. Anything that you've encountered like that, professionally, socially, we want to hear it. Comment below. Follow us on all of our social media. Follow us on Spotify. Subscribe on YouTube. We're trying to put some new stuff on there. Vamping up the Pathways and Means presence on the internet. We've been enjoying riding with you guys, and you're going to like what we have in store. We've got some pretty cool stuff recorded. So, Connor, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Pathways and Means. See you next time.
Thanks so much for listening. We hope you found today's episode informative and inspiring. If you liked what you heard and you'd like to hear more, visit pathwaysmeans.com to check out a ton of additional content from the CPM team. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok, where we post daily content and engage with creators like you. Signing off for Pathways and Means, we'll see you next time.